Hello and goodbye, Minnesota. See you later, Minnesota. Good effort. They gave the Golden Knights a lot in that series. Not quite. I wouldn't go all the way to the full all they can handle. I wouldn't say that. It wasn't that close, but pretty decent series. Like that's a legitimate opponent. The Golden Knights had to work for it. I think the better team ends up winning just because I think this team, this Golden Knights team, is a little bit more polished at getting across the line in games like tonight, in games like the two overtime games. Obviously, winning three in a row is not something that Minnesota, I believe, has ever done in a playoff series. And the Golden Knights have done it, I don't know, 8 times or something like that. And they end up getting the job done today. I think there was a huge benefit in this game of getting the quick power play, the 4 minute power play with the high stick and having that. I think those two high sticks really, when we look back on this, those two 4 minute high sticks were both massive in what ended up occurring in this series and how this went. To me, the story, and it's going to be the story of this series for as long as we ever look back on this series. And there's it's interesting because you look back on series in the past and it's like the LA series the first time is a sweep and it was just excellent defending from a team that we weren't sure what it was going to be. We know the not a major series has that history. You know, the Dallas series from last year, I think the memory of that one's probably the missed chances in game 7 towards the end. The Obviously the Florida series has its own story. We know that one, but like the Edmonton series is kind of where Marchessault got going and hit that natural hat trick in game 6 and wiped them out of there. I think the story of this series is Carlson, Eichel, Stone playing together. Like, I think it's really that simple. And you look back to what were we talking about after game 1, game 2, game 3, and even a little bit into game 4. We were talking a lot about what do you have to do to stop Kaprizov, Boldy, and Eriksson Ek? And what do you have to do to get the best players on the Golden Knights going? Like, aside from Hurdle, they weren't getting a lot of 5-on-5 action. They weren't getting a lot of chances. They weren't generating the same way that top line of Eichel, Stone, and Barbashev had been for a majority of the season. So to decide to go to that is in itself a risky move. Like, it happens towards the end of game 4. Yeah, it happened towards the end of game 4 in the overtime up here. That one, the first decision to make that call, it happens in the middle of the game. That's pretty big. Then to stick with it in game 5 and go through a home game with them knowing it's coming, it's another story. It's another show of we're going to do this. This is what's best for us. And then in game 6, you now come on the road here to gate 2. By the way, it's pretty sweet. They've got all the up over here. Over here, all of the like high school hockey jerseys all around the upper level in this place. It's really cool. The concourse of the stadium's really nice. The stadium itself is nice. Just, I mean, it feels little. I don't know if it actually is or not. It feels little. And they were a little late arriving today, which I think was helpful for the Golden Knights because the intensity of this game really didn't pick up until the third period, and the Golden Knights were ahead for all of the third period. So I think that was certainly beneficial as well. But to then come on the road to know that the matchups are out of your hands and to roll out a lineup where you are well aware it's those three. Those three have to do the job. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Either those three, Eichel, Stone, Carlson, go out there and dominate and win you the game, or they don't and you will lose. And it's not they can be even. It's not they can be all right. No, they were going to lose this game if those three did not have the game type of game that they had. They had to be three of the best players, if not the three best players on the ice. And I believe they probably were. Maybe Foligno has something to say about that. Maybe Boley has something to say about that. Maybe Hartman has something to say about that. But the overall is those three made this game happen. Mark Stone had the hero game. The moment we've been waiting for in all of this series, it's there for him. That's the best game he's played in a long time. Like, you can go back quite a bit. You can go back to last year's playoffs. You can go back I mean, he had the hat trick in game 5 of the game, of the final. So maybe it's that one, but he was excellent in this game. And it's the crazy thing about it, and it's where it's going to be kind of this storyline as we go forward. And it's nice to actually get to talk about what it looks like going forward now, which is fun. I don't know. I have the score up. It's 3-2 Oilers. So at the moment, as it stands, we're heading to Edmonton, or at least I guess Edmonton's heading to us. As it stands, 1 goal from Kings changes that. I've got the score up. I'll update you as we go here, but you're probably watching it anyway. Nonetheless, that line was the answer to 2 questions. And that's the crazy thing about it, because as we go forward, that's now in the back pocket. That's now an option you can go to. I do think that having seen how the game plays out and how things operated with the lineup as it was, without Pavel, I do think that matters. I don't think it's a massive portion of what happened in this game, but I do think it matters, is that you know that that line can shut down an elite offensive line. An elite offensive line also that wins faceoffs and makes things difficult in your own zone, even before you are, even before, like, without you doing anything, right? Like, you have to take a defensive zone draw. They're in the zone. They're going to end up with possession. You're going to have to make the plays to get out. And that line did the job all night long. They exhausted Kirill Kaprizov. They took Eriksson Ek out of the game. He made 2 mistakes directly out in front of the goal that both could have potentially gone the other way. And Boldy's forechecking, I thought, kind of dissipated in this game more so than any of the others. It was there, but it kind of went down. Then once they come out, you know they're elite on the rush. You know they're going to be excellent in the zone. You know they're going to be able to get their offensive or their defensemen in play. You know that they have the hand-eye in front. It's amazing how well William Karlsson plays in front of the goal. It's not something we've seen a lot of in his career. A little bit in year 1. He had a lot of tip chances on the Marchessault turnaround shots, but most of the time, he's not the net front presence. And for him to be able to go there and succeed in that role is a massive find, understanding that that gives you a little bit more. I will stand by, why wasn't this tried at some point earlier in the season, so we had a little bit more information about it, and you end up not in situations that you were in today where you're kind of putting yourself out on a limb here. Also, I think that the coach on the other side helped the Golden Knights yet again. And we said this before the series started. There is a massive discrepancy in that. I was not sure how they were going to shut down Jack Eichel. They did not really have an answer as the series went on. They were good to a degree at the beginning. I even thought at the beginning, game 1, I thought Eichel could have had something in that game. I thought in game 3, he could have had something in that game. Game 4, he got better. So there's really only like the one game. And even that game, the Golden Knights were chasing for almost the entirety of the night. So as much as we want to say like he shut them down, I'm not sure that even happened. The other thing was, I thought that the adjustments and the coaching decisions in this series were going to sway massively towards the Golden Knights. And when all is said and done, the series ends. The Golden Knights win the series in 6 games, 4-2, and lose the overall goals in the series. Golden Knights had 1 fewer goal than Minnesota had over the course of these 6 games. They lost 2 games by 3. They won 2 games by 1, or 3 games by 1, and they won the other one by 2. So they end up losing the series in goals. That's how close this was. This was a close series. And what ended up occurring was that the adjustments and the decisions and the tactics of the Golden Knights head coach, Bruce Cassidy, massively outplayed their opponents. And today, there's never going to be a better example of it. This game, look around, look where I am. Like, I am not in Las Vegas. I am not at T-Mobile Arena. Watching the game, you wouldn't know that based on the deployment of the players. It is unbelievable to me. Unbelievable. Like, improbable. And we would be going nuts if this exact thing happened backwards. We would be losing our minds if we were on the other side of this. To spend 70% of the minutes through the first 2 periods with their best line against Vegas's best line when they have the matchups is ludicrous. absolutely absurd. Why would you not put together some sort of checking line and find a way to take away and waste the shifts on the other side and utilize your best players against a lighter Vegas bottom nine? Even if you want to target just the bottom six, you probably could have done it. They did not. So in turn, Vegas now ends up with a situation where they are now given not only the answer to the question of how do we stop Boldy Kaprizov and Eric Sinek, but they've also now found the answer to how do we get Mark Stone, Jack Eichel, and William Karlsson on the board offensively. You do them both by playing them against that group because Kaprizov's not a great defensive player. Boldy has a good stick, not an elite defensive player. They do not have elite defensive defensemen. They just don't. And Middleton was not particularly good in this series. So to have that situation come up, you make this kind of rash decision because of what had occurred earlier, and then also the injury to your top scoring goal scorer, to your top goal scorer. Those two things occur, and now you're in a position where you're saying, this is kind of the last roll of the dice. This is kind of the only option I have here. It's really the only way you can go about it. And then you come on the road and there's no pushback from the opposing team to make it more difficult on you. That's a huge story of this. And that's why, to me, as much as I want to dig into a lot of the different things that you can see that occurred in this series and some of the shortcomings that the Golden Knights had and some of the places where I thought the Golden Knights took steps in the right direction and some of the guys that came along, I think it's going to be awfully difficult in the next series to have that much of a coaching advantage. One of those coaches will have at least won a series because that's the only way they're going to get to the Golden Knights. One of those coaches potentially will have gone to a game 7 in the Stanley Cup final. If it ends up being Edmonton, it is them. I don't know how good Jim Hiller is, but he will have won 4 out of 7 playoff games against the Edmonton Oilers, who are the defending Western Conference champions, if they get there. The coaching advantage is not going to be as drastic next round as it was here. This Periscope and all Periscopes are brought to you by the Jimmerson Law Firm. Jimmerson Law Firm is one of Las Vegas's preeminent law firms specializing in high-stakes business, civil, and family litigation. When winning matters, seek out the Jimmerson Law Firm. And my playoff travel is brought to you by Vegas Night and Day Heating and Cooling. The farther we go, the more savings you get. We're now into the next round, which means 15% savings on new systems. Go to vkdac.com. And if you don't need a new system, which is probably nice, but if you do, you should really take advantage of it. But if you don't, or you're not sure if you do, go to vkdac.com, tell them SinBin sent you, and they'll get you the $50 pre-summer maintenance special where they come out and make sure that all of your air conditioning unit is working and is going to continue to work. That's the important thing, because it may be working now, but then it may not work later. And if air conditioners break when it's 110 degrees, it sucks. And we're probably going to be watching hockey when it's 110 degrees outside, and you don't want that to go away. So down the lineup is something that I think we have to kind of focus on as we go forward. I think that it's important that the difference in which team we end up with, that's going to make a huge difference in how this looks. Because if it's Edmonton, it'll certainly look a lot different than if it's LA. So we can't quite go there yet. We'll have plenty of time to do that as we move forward. I don't have any sort of idea on the schedule. I've been asked that by a couple of different people, both on here and anywhere else. I do not know. Obviously, Game 7 would matter. If LA comes back and wins this game, then that would matter. If they don't, then they could potentially go a little bit earlier. They kind of all need to wrap up. They have done a little bit of overlap where you'll see still some game 7s occurring when there will be the first, when there will be also game 1s in the next round. I don't expect that to happen. I would assume every other series is wrapped up before the Golden Knights play. My guess would be no sooner than the 5th. I don't believe it should go much deeper than the 5th. It could be the 6th, but again, it will matter what occurs in the other game. So I don't have that timeline yet. Of course, I will be at T-Mobile Arena for game 1 against either of them, and then we'll be on the road heading up there and doing as more playoff periscopes on the road, which is fun. Okay, so I was going to talk about down the lineup. I think it's probably better to talk about the defense because I think the defense kind of tells a bigger story in this series. Or maybe I should probably talk about the goalie, but I don't even think there is much to talk about the goalie. All right, so let's just do the goalie and get that out of the way because, I mean, quite frankly, I don't know why there's even discussion about the goalie. And I see it constantly on my feed. I see it constantly on everywhere I look. I talk to people that are covering the series from the other side, and they're talking about how the other goalie's better than Vegas's goalie, and that's an advantage that's potentially there. And to me, it's like, what does this guy have to do? Like, I don't understand what Adin Hill has to do to get any level of respect of doing this in the playoffs. Like, we sit here and we kill Connor Hellebuck for being garbage in the playoffs. We, for years, killed Bobrovsky for being garbage in the playoffs. Right now, a lot of people are killing Vasilevsky for being bad in the playoffs. Like, okay, well, what about the guys that are good? What about the guys that show up every single time? 16-9. Adin Hill's 16-9. Like, that's a great record as a playoff starter. That's excellent record as a playoff starter. And in elimination games, he is now 4-1. 5-1 if you want to count the one where the Golden Knights were potentially going to be eliminated in game 6 against Dallas. So they lost the game 7 in Dallas. He gives up 2. Not really a bad game at all there. And then all the other ones, a lot of goals scored for the Golden Knights in a lot of the closeout games. Today's a little bit closer. There's an argument to be made that the second goal doesn't even count if it's a big goal. I think if that ties up the game, it's probably a challenge. If it's earlier in the game, it's probably a challenge. I think it's reasonable cause for that to be a challenge. There's a lot going on in the crease, and he's probably not able to play his position. So reasonably, it could have been only the one goal. End up making the decision not to. Gutsy decision. Either way, he's been good. 900 save percentage in 18 of 24 starts, 2 or fewer goals in 12 of 24 starts. Like, I don't know what people want. I don't know what you need to see out of this guy before you believe that you're going to get good goaltending if you play well in front of it. If you play poorly in front of him, he's not going to be the player that's going to bail you out. That's not many guys. The only guys that are supposed to do it aren't doing it. The 3 Vezina candidates aren't doing it at all. So what is the expectation that this guy's supposed to do? It doesn't make any sense. So for me, this series did not come down to Adin Hill being way better than Philip Gustafsson. They were both pretty darn good. They were the team was better, and that's what you're going to get. You're not going to lose a series when you're better than the other team because your goalie doesn't do the job. He's going to do the job for you. He's done it every single time. This is his 5th playoff series. He's done it every single time. Still a little weird they didn't start him to begin last year. I understand how it happened, and then they pull him, and that was weird too. Either way, he's doing the job. All right, on to defense. So defensively, this to me was not a very good game for a good portion of it. I thought the beginning of the game was loose and a problem. And really, when you look at what actually occurred, they had a chance right before the 4-minute high stick. They were taking advantage of some of the Golden Knights' loose plays all over the ice, offensive zone, neutral zone, couple of them in the defensive zone. Vegas was not very clean in this game. And that was some of the push that we expected Minnesota to have. They then take a terrible undisciplined penalty. Just a ridiculous penalty when you look at it. 4-minute high stick. It's just absurd. Give the Golden Knights really an opportunity to settle into the game. They score the goal on the power play on the first one. They still then get the extra 2 minutes. And even though they didn't score, that really allowed them to kind of settle in. As that period went on, it got a little better, but not a ton better. And that's where, as we go forward, that's the place that you're probably going to need to see a little bit more like improvement or advancement or whatever you want to call it, sharpening up the skills and sharpening up what needs to occur, because teams are going to forecheck the Golden Knights. Whether it's LA or it's Edmonton, they're going to come on the forecheck. They're going to make things difficult and try to force them to force the Golden Knights to turn the puck over. And they're going to have to improve, because as much as there were issues in this series, And a lot of them did end up behind Hill. And we saw that across the entire series from a number of different lines. The fact is, this team that they played here doesn't have enough players to really bury you when you make those mistakes. They just don't. They have one line that's excellent. Foligno had a good series. Hartman had a good series. Their third line was a train wreck. Their fourth line got the job done a few times, but really didn't do an awful lot. And a lot of the turnovers that they created end up going begging because they don't have guys who can put the puck in the net on that group. So to me, that's a place that, like, as this game went on, I thought it got better, but I also thought that it got simpler. And I thought that's why a lot of the zone time did end up kind of going against the Golden Knights as this game went on, certainly into the third period. You end up finding a way. Thought Eichel nearly scored the one, and then Stone gets the unbelievable batting puck in. By the way, Mike, I talked a little bit about it, but the pass from Mark Stone to Jack Eichel is unbelievable. It's insane. Just floating the pass out there beyond Kaprizov, and then it stopped basically on ice. They play on ice. That was unreal. Like, it's hard to do that with a soccer ball in the mud. It's really hard to do that with a golf ball. Trust me, I try all the time. I can't do it. I just can't. I stink. And this guy's doing it with a goddamn stick on ice. It was unreal. I still think Kaprizov probably should have thrown his stick at it. Might take a penalty, but it might have saved the goal. He ends up reaching out and doesn't get it. And then once Eichel has it, you're like, all right, you look down now. We got a goal. You could start celebrating the moment you got it. That was unreal. Like, that pass was spectacular. And then to bat that puck in, like, that's kind of what we expect out of Mark Stone. If you put him in front, he's going to make that play. So, like, that's a different story. But that play, that pass is unreal. Like, it's that's the type of stuff that they were getting out of Kaprizov earlier in the series, that they've been getting out of Boldy. That's what they were getting. They got it. Game one. Kaprizov makes an unbelievable pass, floats the puck out, and lands it on Boldy's stick. Like, that's what happened. Or maybe it was game two. I think it was game two. Like, those are the types of plays you're going to need. And for them to then show up and get it done and get enough of those plays was huge. Ends up being huge. So that's that. Down the lineup, a lot of things kind of change when you load up that top line as it is. I think you lose a lot of what Riley Smith offers offensively, or even at 5-on-5 as a whole, when you play him without William Karlsson. Like, I just don't think you're going to get the same level of play. So the challenge is, as you move forward, as you get to either of these two teams, because either way, there's more depth on the next team that they play than there was on this team. They've also going to have won a series, which is something that Minnesota hasn't done since 2015. Imagine how challenging, like, just think about this for a second. Just think about the ups and downs that we went through just in this series, winning game one, losing two, overtimes in games 3 and 4, not knowing if this game was going to be the end, understanding that a game 7 was going to be kind of a coin flip or a roll, whatever. And then Vegas typically comes out on the right side of them. I know they didn't last year, but more often than not, they've come out on the right side of them. Meanwhile, if you're a Minnesota fan, they've lost 8 consecutive first rounds. 8 consecutive first rounds. Like, that's unbelievable. It's a disaster. And you can feel it. Like, you could feel it in the crowd. You could feel the energy the moment they went behind. You could just sense that it's like, here we go again. And that's why I actually liked this game as a better opportunity for the Golden Knights to win this series than the next one. I actually think the next one, the pressure would have been back on Vegas as opposed to on Minnesota. And so it's good that they ended up getting the job done today. I don't think they played a perfect game. And that's what I'm wrestling with a little bit at this point, because the way that they got across the line in this game in this series for 4 wins is making some of the same mistakes that they've made in the past, but finding a way to get through it, is having to make a decision with the lines that is really risky and really kind of taking away some of the biggest benefits of what this roster has on it. I think you kind of minimize and limit some of that by going to the super mega top line. And then also, like, the fact that the forecheck came as hard as they came, the fact that they've struggled a bit against top players, that was a bit of an issue. The backup goalie thing, they end up going 3-2 against the starter. They did get a win against the backup goalie. So even that kind of came in. Granted, they're probably, as it stands, Oilers, you're going to play a backup goalie. I mean, he'll be on a 4-game winning streak if it is going to be the Oilers. And if they do end up winning tonight, but that's a backup goalie in Calvin Pickard. So that's good. But when you look forward, you're like, all right, so what needs to change? What needs to improve? The lines going back to a little bit more of a balanced setup, it didn't really work. And it didn't really work against a team that does defend pretty well. I think if it's LA, they defend even better. Apparently they don't go against Edmonton, but also that scares me because if it's Edmonton, and if Vegas defends at the level that they defended against in this series against Edmonton, Draisaitl is going to have 7 goals and McDavid's going to have 15 points. Like, that's going to be concerning. 15 might be a lot, but that's going to be concerning. And to know that, like, you can't simply load up all of this top line to just take away their top line because they may not be playing together. They probably would not. And if the Golden Knights do load up, they almost certainly would not play them together. So that portion of it is going to be very difficult. The overall sense of the games, like, the number one thing to take away from how did the Golden Knights win this series is they did it by just finding ways. They just had the answer more often than their opponent did. They had the answer in overtime. They had the answer when the game got stale for portions of games in the middle. Certainly today's game, definitely in the previous game, definitely in game 4 when they were able to fight back and get the 2 goals in the third period and beat them for the first time when they had a third period lead all season, 4-2 Oilers. So we might be going to Edmonton. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't bad. It wasn't, and this is something that we talked a little bit about 2 years ago when Cassidy said the team was imperfect and that there were some things that they had to work through. I think that team had less of that than this team did. This team found a way to get the lead a couple of times and made that hold up, which was certainly a big part of what occurred. Getting the lead tonight, I think, was massive. Finding a way to make things happen, to not have to chase this game and not have to come back on a team that is pretty good defensively. I think that's huge. So as we go forward, as we start looking at what needs to get better, I do think the forecheck, the defending against the forecheck is going to have to get better. I thought they were pretty good in front of the goal for a majority of this series. There were a couple. Foligno's going to do his thing. But for the most part, there wasn't a lot of offensive zone time that the puck works its way into a dangerous position and then they win the second chance in front. I thought they were pretty good there. Offensively, it got way better as the series went on, too. I thought the traffic in front improved. And maybe that's just growing into a playoff series. Maybe that's just growing into the postseason. Something that it did have to happen a little bit 2 years ago in that Winnipeg series. It didn't really have to happen last year. Thought they were ready for the playoffs last year, where it did take them a little bit of time. I think it has taken a little bit of time in this one. And so to see that really improve in a way that felt good, that felt like there was traffic in front. Important to note, I think a lot of the traffic in front was with the big line. Carlson getting in front, Stone getting in front, Eichel was in front at one point. Like, I think a lot of the low to high stuff, the best opportunities were almost always with those guys on the ice. So that is one where, all right, now can the depth of the team start making that impact again? So you got some of it at the beginning of the series. You got the goals from Brett Howden. You get the goal from Nick Waugh on the power play. Pavel scored the goal. You were getting a little bit more. Hannafin had one. Theodore ends up with a couple. You can get more from guys like that are not your best players. 5-2. Wow. See ya, LA. Guess what? Guess I'll start looking at flights up there. That ain't going to be cheap. Thanks, Vegas Night and Day, for sponsoring me, because it is not going to be easy getting up and back. Maybe I'll go to the mall. I didn't go to the mall here. Never actually got to the mall here. So oh well, maybe we'll go to the mall up in Edmonton. I heard it's nice. It's probably not. I don't what's good about Edmonton. The stadium's nice. I'll give them that. The press box is very nice. Press box here is nice. It's a good place. I like it here. Downtown St. Paul's a little boring. Nonetheless, it's been fun. It's been fun to be up here. And again, like in the postseason, the only thing that really matters, the only thing that in the end we ever remember, and like I said before, like the memory of this series is going to be sticking those three together, and they won. They did enough. I think my memory is also going to be how terrible John Hines is, but I also had that memory coming in. The entire time down the stretch, I said Minnesota might be the better hockey team, but they have the worst coach, and that came up in a big way. I think the fact is, this team has that knack. This team has that ability to be in stalemate situations, to even in this case be behind. They have not been behind in series very often. They were not behind much the entirety of the run. Actually, they were only behind once, game one. So now you're behind game three. Hopefully, they're not behind much moving forward, because a lot of you guys panic a lot. I also panicked a little bit. Will admit, I did panic a little bit after game two, and even after game three or game four. Game three, I panicked quite a bit. Game four, I was like, I don't know. Game five, I started to feel better. Today, especially with the early goal, I'm like, well, we're in pretty good shape here. This should be perfectly fine. But it's about surviving and moving forward. And they've done that. They've done that in a way that makes you feel like they're getting better. And that's important. Injuries are going to play a bigger part of this season probably than 2 years ago. I think that's inevitable. I think there's also some things to look at to say, like, there are differences in the two teams. There are not as many guys that you can just feel like things are just going to be able to be put on their back and the job's going to get done. Like Eichel was able to do that. Marchessault was able to do that. Pietrangelo had an unbelievable playoff run that time around. Stevenson had a pretty good playoff run. They had a lot of different wingers that were getting the job done. The fourth line was scoring consistently, like I think a number of different times. Carrier scored 5-3. All right, they're not dead yet. So that game's insane. Like I don't know what to make of it. But this team's different. This team's definitely going to be more reliant on Eichel really driving the game, really driving what they're going to do. And we saw that when he didn't. And again, I still think that's kind of harsh. I would say Stone probably would take more of the brunt of that, in my opinion. But when he didn't, when we were in the position where they weren't getting the offer from those guys, you could see it wasn't going to go Vegas's way. Where that year, 2 years ago, I think there were more options. That's okay. That's all right. Like, you don't have to be the same team. You just have to be better than the team they're going to play. And reasonably, the two teams that they're going to play, which we still think probably going to be Edmonton, but maybe LA, who knows? That series is insane. Either way, whoever it's going to be, the Golden Knights are absolutely on par, if not better, than either of those teams. Like, they're not going to come in at a deficit. They're going to have the extra home game. Not sure that's going to make a huge difference, as it did not in this series. Probably would have been better to play on the road all the games here because their coach didn't utilize it. So it didn't really make a difference in this series. Like, whatever Cassidy wanted, he got, because the other coach didn't have a plan for how to counter any of it, which was nice. That probably is not going to be the case in the next turn. However, yeah, this is not right. The Oilers are not a weaker version of the Wild. I'm hoping you're joking on that. They're not. They're a much different team. They are significantly more dangerous offensively. They do significantly more in the offensive zone. They actually have a power play, which is something that really was beneficial in this series. They definitely are worse defensively. No question about that. Like, they're absolutely worse defensively. And that's where that stat comes in. And it's been floating around for a while. It's going to keep floating around. When the Golden Knights score 3 goals, they win. It's 42 consecutive playoff games. And the last one that they lost was bullshit, which was the not a major game where they were up 3-0, had the game won, and they would have made it done. I understand the goalies do suck. I agree. Their goalies are bad. Their goalies are bad. Like, I get that. And that's potentially going to come through. There's no question about that. That could be a huge part of it. You don't have bad takes. That's just comparing Minnesota and Edmonton's. I know why you want to do it. I get it, but trust me on this one. The team that won the Western Conference last year, that has won the first round now 4 years in a row, that team's not the same as Edmonton or as Minnesota, who hasn't won a single first round series since 2015, who has lost in the first round 8 years in a row, who has not been up 3-1 in any series ever in franchise history. Like, it's not the same. as great as Kirill Kaprizov was in this series, he's not even close to either of the two guys on Edmonton. So like, let's go there. Yeah, maybe Wild and Kings is a little bit closer. Even that, like, the Kings are a different type of team. They're deeper. Either way, I'll try and stay on topic here. The key part for me is that there are some new options. There are some different things going on with the D pairs. I don't know at like through 6 games of the playoffs. I don't know that I feel all that comfortable with either Hanifin or Pietrangelo defensively, and not getting a ton of offense out of either of them's a bit concerning. That will have to probably change. And like, they're going to have to outscore some of the mistakes if it does end up being Edmonton, which we're heading seemingly to the next intermission. So it does seem like that's likely. I just think like they've got to be better. They've got to be more consistent defensively. And I think the next series is going to have a lot to do with defending. They're going to have to be really good in front of Adin Hill, because that team can score from all over the place. They can make great plays to score on you. They can make pretty plays to score on you. They can get the ugly ones. They have a lot of different ways to score. So it's going to be tricky. But I'll say this. Now that I've seen enough of what the Kings are deficient at, the things that, and you look at the Golden Knights against the Kings, and I'll get to Edmonton because that's more likely, but if it is the Kings, the things that the Kings have shown to be deficient at also did show up in some of the games against the Golden Knights. There's one game, the Golden Knights were down 5-1. They almost came back and got it. Like, they've scored goals on the Kings. It is possible to score goals on LA. They are not the defensive superstars as they were in year past. And clearly they have shown that they're not going to be the defensive superstars this time around, because they've given up a fuck ton of goals to Edmonton recently. I think the Golden Knights are going to be favored against LA. And that's not just like from the money perspective, because on the William Hill mobile sports app, they're of course going to be favored. There typically tends to be more money coming in on Vegas than anywhere else. We have to be a little bit careful with that. And I think we've done a pretty good job over our years of understanding that. Like, when it starts to get close, that means it's actually leaning a little bit the other direction. This series got as close as -1 and aside as the Golden Knights were down 2-1. That's because they were probably behind at that point. They were actually probably in a bad spot in that point. They had to win 3 more games out of 4. They ended up winning 3 out of 3. So as we look at this one, I think they're a slight favorite against both. And even though the Oilers have had a lot of, they've gotten a lot of like credit, I guess I would say, from the gambling world, from the advanced analytics world. And the thing about them is they've won. They haven't beat Vegas. We remember the series before, and that was a tight series. Like, we're going to have to go over that series a lot. There's going to be a lot to go over from that series, because there is a lot of similarities. The coach, our coach is the same. Their coach is a huge upgrade. My goodness, what an upgrade! One of the only guys worse than John Hines was the guy that they used to have, and I saw Anaheim's considering hiring him. Holy shit, what a disaster that would be. John Cooper's potentially available, and you're going to hire the guy that couldn't even make McDavid and Draisaitl win. Yikes! Either way. Like, that team has the pedigree of figuring it out, of getting it done. That team has the guy that even if you do everything in your power to stop him, they may not have him. And yeah, it's going to be harder without the goal scoring ability of Jonathan Marchessault, because you still got to get the 3. Like, I think they are going to find ways to get the 3. I will make the bold prediction that if it is indeed Edmonton, there will be a game where the Golden Knights score 3 and don't win. Like, I do think that is possible. I don't think their defense is at the level that it was. But also, I think they might score more this time around than they did last time around. And so that's how I see that going. Either way, we're through this one. That's all that you really could have asked for. I don't think like walking away, I don't think we can sit here and say, well, they should have been better. They should have dispatched this team easier. Like I don't really feel that way. I thought they did what they needed to do against Minnesota. Would have been nice if they were not behind. But I think they potentially took something away from some of those games. The ability to have different guys get to the front. Yeah, and Ryan Hartman was hella annoying. Yeah. Well, gear up because Corey Perry's hella annoying and Evander Kane's hella annoying too. So we'll see as we go forward. They got some dudes that are quite annoying. Kings don't have as many, but they have a few as well. If Tanner Jeannot finds his way back in, he's one that'll annoy us too. But like Minnesota played a decent series. Their players did a lot to give this series enough of where we were going to have some concern. Like that's where we were. So we'll see as we go forward. Wow, 4-4 Stars Avs. What a game that is. What a series that's been too. That thing's lived up all the way. I like where we're at. I like that there's an extra home game. I don't expect the Golden Knights to win the first two home games against either of these two teams. Like I said, if it's probably going to be Edmonton. I don't think you're going to win that, but I also think getting on the road is going to be fine. This team can win on the road. They haven't had as much success as they had a couple of years ago, but they can win on the road. So I think they're in a good spot. Like I have a feeling, and we'll see once we officially get there. I'm probably going to pick Vegas again. I pick Vegas in 5 or 6. Depends on who you were listening to. I do that on purpose. I don't do it on purpose. I actually forgot. And then I thought one time I said 6, and then another time I said 5. And then I just decided to go back and forth every interview I was on so that I'm right on some of them, which I'm waiting for those texts that are like when they clip the little thing and say, look, this guy was right. Like, how come I never get that? I always get the shit when I'm wrong. You said this. You guys still yap at me because I was pumped after game 2 of the Dallas series when they won 2 games on the road and Dallas couldn't get to the front of the goal and couldn't do anything. I'm like, we're in good shape. You guys still give me shit about that, and I was wrong about that, and I was trying to be optimistic. How come when I get it right, somewhat right, or at least close to right, I definitely said the Golden Knights were going to win the series. I never walked away saying they were going to lose. I was a little nervous after game 3, don't get me wrong, but I never said they were going to lose. How come I never get credit for that? Can I get some credit? Thanks to the Jimmerson Law Firm for sponsoring all Periscopes this season. We will continue with a Periscope after every single postseason game all the way to the end. We're 1 game further than we were 2 years ago. That's when take 5 in the first time. Yeah, this is a good point from Chris. Have I met us? Valid. I'll give it to you. I'll give it to you. And I love everybody on this damn thing because you're the reason I get to do this. You're the reason I get to be in Minnesota right now. You're the reason why I have an 8:30 flight back. Though that's kind of mean. Either way, you're why I get to do this. You're why I get to be in these buildings and have a lot of fun covering this team and have covered this team for as long as I have. And I'm going to keep doing it for a long time. So as always, I appreciate that. I should say that more often. I guess today's a day that I will do that. Thanks to Vegas Night and Day Heating and Cooling for sponsoring all of my playoff travel this year and for the last 3 years. They will continue doing that. Go to VKDAC for the offers and tell them SinBin sent you, and they will get some good stuff for you. Dorofeev hasn't looked good again. Thoughts? So the Dorofeev update is day to day. I'll kind of go through what I saw, and then now I've gotten a little bit of secondhand news and notes that have kind of potentially put some of the pieces together. It looked to me like somewhere during the third period, and it's really hard to tell because there's never actually like a kerfuffle. So that's what I'll go with. There's never a moment. Yeah, that's the word I want. Where an interaction. God damn it! I need to pull the thesaurus up. Nothing ever happened where you say that's when it happened. That's the moment where he got injured. I don't think we have that moment on the film. However, I think what is on the film from game 5 is an urgency level to his skating that has been there for as long as he's been in the NHL and has been at the level that is expected and that has done the job. Thank you, Jamie. You're the one I don't even deserve that from you. I yelled at you earlier in this thing, and then you end up being the one that gives me the super chat. That's quite appreciated. Thanks for being a good sport, even though I kind of yelled at you. And shame on everyone else for making Jamie, the one that I yelled at, have to be the one that. Either way, back to what I was saying. I don't see anything that shows where he was injured. However, yeah, this is a good point. Good call from because Karen's not here, or at least Karen hasn't said anything. I did get on Karen earlier, and Karen ended up being right. So I asked for credit. I'll give the Karen credit to Karen. Hopefully, Karen watches this at some point. However, what I did see is as the period went on, and it's really noticeable in the very last shift, there's no burst in his skating anymore towards the last couple of shifts. He took one shift with 4 minutes left in the period. That is the last shift that he played in the series. We will see what it looks like. I've gotten some reports that he was testing his skating in between, and there was potentially some sort of grab towards his leg or groin area. That's heavily concerning, because if that's the case, it's not going to get better. It might get better enough to where he gets to play and can actually give it something, but it's probably not going to get better. I wrote it earlier, and I still will stand by it, that I don't think he was going to be the type of player that was going to dominate in playoff series. I thought there was possibilities that he was going to potentially get some goals. I thought there were situations where he would put this team in a good position and help them. I want him in the lineup. I think he's better than the other players that are potentially going to end up in this lineup. And as each guy that goes out, you get thinner and thinner, and you don't want to have to deal with that. However, I think Olofsson coming in from him isn't the drop-off that you would expect from losing your top goal scorer. And so because of that, I think they're uniquely placed to withstand that and overcome that. And I thought we saw that tonight. You didn't see a massive drop-off in how they were trying to attack because they didn't have Pavel. And I think even if Pavel's in the lineup, maybe that ends up being Stone's not on that top line, and we don't get the dominance that we ended up getting. Maybe we have a different game. Might have ended up hurting. I don't know. Either way, I don't know that at this point, and this can change, he can come back, he can look good. We'll focus on his skating. We've got a couple of days here before the next series, but I am a little bit nervous at the fact that, like, I don't know that if it's a groin injury, a lower body injury, something affecting his skating, which is what it appeared to be. It's a non-contact thing, or at least it doesn't appear to be something that was contact and instantly injured, and we know it. It at least took some time to come through. It's probably not good. It's probably not something that's going to get back to 100%. So now you're going to have to probably look at moving forward without him. That's going to be tricky because the winger depth, the scoring winger depth, the ability to have different players to do different things now becomes limited. Do I think it's like a death sentence? No. Usually teams losing their top goal scorer from the regular season and the postseason probably would be a death sentence. For the Golden Knights, it's not. That you can look at that so many different ways. It was not a death sentence against Minnesota. I did not expect it to be. I don't know that it's going to be moving forward. That's all I've got for tonight. Thanks again to the Jimmerson Law Firm sponsoring all my Periscopes. Thanks to Vegas Night and Day Heating and Cooling for sponsoring my travel. Go to Minnesota.Vegas to see the wrap-up of this series. The series hub is there. And guess what? We are 20 minutes away. We're probably buying Edmonton.Vegas next. I'll have to get a text in to make sure we get that, and we will set up the new series hub on Edmonton.Vegas, or if it ends up being LA, I don't know if it'll be, probably won't be LA, Los Angeles or LA Kings or something like that. Yeah, Avs 5-4. Interesting. We will set that up, and we'll have the new series hub where you'll be able to get all sorts of lineups and injuries and odds and you name it. It's a great place. It's a good place to go read some stories from the other side, see my pictures from my travels, which are fun, and doing all that good stuff. So, oh my gosh, 5-5. That series is insane. I should probably shut this off, go home and watch hockey because it's fun. Hockey is fun. This series was fun. This game was fun. This building was fun. Goodbye, Minnesota. Goodbye, everyone. I'll see you back in Vegas for round number 2.